Welcome. Thank you for coming to our deep dive into DraftSight's BIM module. For today's session, my plan is just to be kind of I'm going to go through the process of how to use the BIM module, create some drawings, and export some PDFs. And while I'm going through, I want, if anyone here sees something that they're interested in, if they want me to kind of explore or explain a little bit deeper, I can do that. I'm going to kind of go through a lot here, and then we'll, like I said, raise your hand if you want to see something more, and we'll talk about it in depth. But we'll go through at the end, and then kind of have some discussion about where this BIM module, where DraftSight and these BIM capabilities can kind of fit in the ecosystem of Dassault Systems and the 3D Experience platform with some of our other flagship products. So again, I'm going to start off here, but please feel free to raise your hand at any point and ask me to elaborate or go deeper into anything. So for anyone who might not be aware, DraftSight and the BIM module allow you to import IFC and Revit files to very quickly create dynamic and powerful 2D drawings. And we'll see that in a moment here. But what we have on screen here is a Revit model, and I can show you here in the BIM files section. So what you're seeing on the left side of the screen is the BIM navigator. That's kind of where all of these files, all of this information will be stored, and that's how we're going to navigate it for the most part. We're definitely going to spend the most amount of time in this BIM navigator palette. There's actually 4 palettes that are introduced within the BIM module, and we'll go over the other 3. But this is kind of your hub when working with BIM models. So also, before I go further, it's a nice annual tradition for me where I will lose my voice by the end of this. So when that happens, I'll drink some water and hopefully slow it down. But yeah, on the left here, you can see our BIM files. This is our Revit file that we have loaded in. For the sake of the example, we can actually load in and layer multiple BIM files at the same time. So I'll import some more. Give me one moment. So what this allows you to do is when you're working on a project and there's multiple teams involved, you can have the MEP model overlaid with the architectural model, overlaid with the structural model, and they're kind of all shown as one, so you can kind of navigate all 3 of those files as one assembly, or isolate each file on its own, which we'll talk about in a moment. We can filter through a lot of these BIM objects very easily. But yes.
For the Revit model?
So we cannot write Revit models. We import them, and I believe we're now up to 2025 at this point. And we're trying, I think we're at the point now when we update to support 2026, we will then be on par with the Revit releases. But yeah. Good question. We get that a lot. I will overlay. I'll overlay the second version of this file just to show that you can load in multiple. But yes. And so moving on here, if I go into the Entities tab, you can see every single individual object in the file, which is we really do understand the BIM model. We understand the physical geometry of each part as well as the information that lives inside of every single individual part. So here you can know these are all organized by category. So the columns are all here, the lifts, the curtain walls, everything, and you can kind of structure this entity tree however you like. And you're able to show and hide each individual object. You can zoom in on them. So you really can navigate this entire model and very complex buildings very well in DraftSight. It's a really powerful, at worst, it's a very powerful viewer. So moving on, I'll kind of go over as a walkthrough on the BIM Navigator palette here. Here are where we can use our filters. Filters are one of the most powerful parts of the BIM module. So if you aren't super familiar with Revit and IFC, each wall contains a large amount of information about that wall that may not show up in the physical representation of it, but there's a ton of information in there. And what we can do is filter out any objects we may or may not be interested in within this model. So for example, this is the filter criteria of the model. So if I wanted to say, I just want to show all of the walls in this Revit file, what I'll do is say category equals wall. So when I add this filter here, it will only show me all of the walls in this model. And you can combine these filters however you like. You can also say, I want to see everything but the walls. You do the kind of category does not equal wall. So now it strips out all of the walls if you're interested in what's inside. And this is extremely powerful when navigating these really complex Revit models and IFC models. It also allows you to kind of customize the level of detail you're interested in depending on the phase of if you're doing a construction project. If you're only interested in a low level of detail, you can filter out, whatever, furniture, for example, if you're only interested in the floor plan. So I'm going to, for now, actually I'll hold off on that. Does anyone have any kind of questions or thoughts on how we are able to kind of view and navigate these Revit models? Yes.
That's all with 3D connection products. Space mouse and stuff.
I'm unaware. Okay. I know that there's a lot of 3D connection mouses out there today, so I'm actually unaware if we're able to. Thank you. So we only, right now, that's a good question because we get that. We only import the model. What I would like to see is that, because in Revit, obviously, there are drawings associated with the model. So if we can somehow import the model and the drawing standards, like the title block, sheet size, and then automatically apply that to DraftSight, that's going to save a lot of time, especially for the people downstream of the architects, where they have to adhere to the architect's kind of sheet format. So having that just imported at the same time would be great. But as of right now, you just have to set it up as you kind of traditionally would. Okay. So now, are there any more, no more questions so far? Okay. What I'm going to do next is start kind of slicing up this building so we can get the 2D representations. We're going to make some floor plans, make a couple section cuts, some elevations, and then go from there. So a part of the BIM module in DraftSight is the BIM tab up here, where you can see all of this, all of these goodies in the ribbon here that are exclusive to the BIM module. And on the left here in the drawing panel, I'm going to start creating some plans. So we're going to start with the second floor of this. I'll do a second. And what it's doing is just taking a plane and a depth, essentially, and then just giving you that 2D view at this location. So you can see here that green plane is the cut, and the gray kind of extension is how far of a depth you want on this plan. So, and now in the BIM Navigator here on the left, you can see under plans, we have the second floor that we've just generated. So I'll open this up. And we have a very nice floor plan that is dynamic and linked to where we inserted or where we defined that cutting plane. I personally, for the sake of looking at these and making sense of them, I do like to remove these little room indicators here just so it's a little bit cleaner, and you have the ability to do that. But obviously you can see the stairs are recognized, and you have that kind of directional indicator there that is just derived automatically from the stairs. And we see our doors, windows, our rooms themselves. With, on the right side, you can see all the properties that live inside of these, or that are assigned to this room. So it's a lot of data here that we can leverage. We'll cover that in a little bit, but we can leverage all of this information when we want to annotate and dimension and you know, make our drawings look pretty later on. Does anyone have any questions on what we're looking at right now? Okay. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to make maybe one or two more floor plans, and then actually I'll do a section first, and then we'll kind of move forward with I'll jump over to the annotations next. So again, the section follows the same kind of philosophy here. You make your cut, and then you specify your depth that you want to actually see. So I'm going to just do it through the whole building. Let's call that section 1. And it'll be nice and categorized correctly under the section of the BIM Navigator. So I'll open that up. Again, within only a couple of seconds, we have a nice, accurate section of our building. And what I want to point out here is this is our second floor. This is where we drew in the second floor, the floor plan, essentially. I can't actually move this because it is tied to where I created it. And that ensures the consistency throughout my drawing set, because, you know, I don't want to actually move this to a point where it creates an inconsistency, where I'm showing it a foot higher, and then you can run into some issues if your annotations are not consistent. So that's a really nice thing. We remove some of the freedoms that you might have in order to maintain that consistency and you know, make sure no mistakes. So I'll close this one out. I'll make one or two more plans. Actually, I'll do an elevation. Elevations kind of work the same as a section, except it's just the outside of the building. But you can see how quick it is. I mean, it really flattens down a very complex 3D model. I mean, it's a building, and you get a really quick, clean 2D representation of it. Again, I'll just, for the sake of showing everyone, we'll pull up the elevation. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into, we'll go over some of the annotation capabilities that we have here. And this is a real time saver. You can see again, we have our labels here that I cannot select and move. But okay, so what we can do, you know, if you're looking to annotate this entire floor plan, say, okay, this is the kitchen, this is the bedroom, this is the bathroom. Instead of going through and adding those little blocks of text one by one manually, what we can do is go up to the annotate panel here in the BIM module, and we can go under the label doors drop down. We have a lot of options where we can label doors, windows, walls, and rooms, or we can just do all of them at once. So I'll start with the rooms, where we label all rooms, and you can see these labels just appear, and I'll go over this later, but you can see the locale field that's entered. That is, I believe, means room in Italian. This model was created in Italian. And the number on the bottom is the room number. And with just a click, it auto annotates everything. And I'll show how these annotations update later on when you reload the model, which is another huge time saver. But for the sake here, I'm just going to go ahead and add all of the doors and windows as well. So you can see with just a few clicks, we've correctly labeled with some of the geometric kind of properties of the windows, the doors, and the rooms. We've added all of these labels that are consistent with the Revit model. And what we can do here. So obviously you look at these window labels, and that text is hard to read because it's right on top of the geometry. So we have the adjust labels command that should kind of just shift them all slightly so that they're just much easier to read when these actually get printed out. Really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions or want me to kind of, go into any other possibilities here? No.
Room areas, can you label those too?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the labels that I'm using, these are the default DraftSight labels. We have this is a good opportunity to show the label library. So these are some other options for labels that DraftSight offers by default. So we have a few doors. This stands for door name, DONA. We have door width, door height, just a few options by default that you can kind of select and choose, for your drafting standards. And then we have the room labels, wall labels, window labels, and so on. And you're able to kind of create your own custom ones as well. Obviously, everyone who's drafting has their own drafting styles, their own drafting standards, their company standards, and you can create your own to pull whatever data you might want out of these objects. So I know some of the room ones have room area. That's what that roar one on the bottom is. It's room area. You can have these labels display all of that information. It's really nice. Are there any other questions right now? Yep. So I don't believe we can import a point cloud by default right now. I think there might be some add-ins floating around there, but they're not official ones that we offer. So, it's tough for me to position them or support them in that way. But we get that a lot. We get people want to do the building scans, the floor plan scans and all that and load it right in here. It's something that I think we're aware of the need for it and hopefully can kind of deliver something at some point, but right now we can't. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to go on here, and the next thing that I want to talk about, I'm going to go into the material mapper next. So what our material mapping and multi-component panels let us do, so these are the other two of the four panels that I kind of mentioned, it lets us really clean up these floor plans and make them look very, very clean and easy to read. So I'm going to select one of these walls here. And what you'll see on the right side there is you actually get a breakdown of what is inside of that wall, what components make up that wall, and what thicknesses of each component. And you get a nice preview of essentially the cross-section of that wall. And what we can do is automatically assign hatches, cross patterns, whatever you want to call them, gradients, to a certain material. So what I'm going to do is, I have it written down because I don't speak Italian. I'm going to assign the correct kind of hatching to all of these materials, and then I'll refresh the plan, and you'll see each material that makes up the wall will have a nice clean hatch on it, so it's easy to understand what each wall is. Oh my goodness, I didn't write down the translation. I think aria I know is air, so it's just empty space. So on the left side of the screen here, we can see here are all of the materials that live inside of this Revit model. So obviously everyone, there's multiple different kinds of aluminum. There you can see 4 here. There's a bunch of different, I think Intonaco is brick, so you'll see a few different types of brick. So I'm just going to, for the sake of simplicity, assign our standard hatches to all of them. So air openings, air surfaces here, I'm going to do airspace. Oh, we got to do aria, don't we? We have to match it up. I apologize. So the aria here, airspace. And now you can see in our preview on the bottom right of that cross section of the wall already has the hatch assigned to it. So if once we go through and assign the correct material to all these, we'll see it right away. So I'll go down to Intonaco, assign the brick hatch to it, to structural. Oop. Gotta do one by one. And you can see that exterior side has now that correct hatch assigned to it. And you get a preview here on the left side. I'll go through and knock it out quick. One of these I know is insulation. I think that's the one that begins with I. What was it? Oh. Thank you. I need to brush up on my Italian. Oh. And this, what I'll point out is here, these material hatches, material library, you can actually, this is just the default one offered by DraftSight, but you can fully customize the material library, what materials you want in there. You can fully customize that list as well as export and share it among your team so that you have your own consistent standards throughout your organization. I'll pull that up in a moment. Does anyone have any questions on the material mapper while I do that? Keep adjusting this. I do forget. Which one did you say the
Bottom one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll move on after this. Yeah, it is. There we go. Now we have a full cross section here. Okay, cool. So obviously we do have to refresh the floor plan once we assign our materials. So I'm going to close it out, refresh it, and we'll see. Yep.
I was wondering if there are any ways of reference standard libraries, structural complements, choices. That's
What do you mean reference the standard?
So there are structural I-beams.
Yep. Are you looking to add in I-beams kind of into the 3D model, or are you looking to kind of...
Maybe wanted to pop one of our warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
Build a sort of accurate structure.
Yeah. So with DraftSight's BIM capabilities, we can't create Revit or IFC content actually. What we're doing is consuming it, and you can kind of design on top of it in 2D, or just create drawings with, just with the Revit. But we can't actually author. The most you could do really is import your model, indicate, hey, I want I-beams here, here, and here, but then you'd have to, whoever created the model would then have to go in and create it in Revit or CATIA or whatever tool. Yeah, right. We're kind of exclusively downstream from the model right now, just for the purpose of creating drawings or designing in 2D. Yeah. Yeah, like if I understand correctly, you can, if I have the cross section of our building here, I can say, I can add in additional just 2D I-beam representations. In theory, I could draft on top of this as I would with any DWG file. It won't show up in the 3D model, but in the final drawing, you'll see, oh, there's extra I-beams here. You can annotate it and say, add structural I-beam, just as you would, but we can't author the Revit and IFC. Are there any other questions? I'm going to quickly refresh the floor plan. And then I'll open it up to show the materials are correctly mapped. And then after that, I'll show how to kind of set up a drawing and on the really great options we have there. And I won't try to leave about 5-10 minutes to discuss if anyone wants to discuss, but if not, I can just keep going through everything and, go from there. So I'll open up the second floor plan again. And now our walls should be properly filled in. Here we go, nice and colorful. If we zoom in closer, we can see now our wall is comprised of the correct kind of representations. So it's easier to see as someone reading the drawings, you can see, okay, this represents this material, this represents this, and so on. And these, obviously you can tell that these have colors assigned to them. Those colors are assigned in the material library here. So you select your hatch, select your color, you can set those properties there so that they're consistent throughout. I can kind of scroll through here, you can see we have foam, aluminum, concrete. You're able to assign two hatches to it. One will represent the surface of it, and one will represent the cross section. If you want to differentiate between that, so if I want hardwood to look like hardwood when I'm looking at it, I can do that. But if I cut through it, I can represent it with a different hatch. But again, this is fully customizable and shareable among your teams. Okay, so now we have a pretty good looking floor plan here. And what I'm going to do is go back to our drawing here and show how we set it up onto our actual sheet space to see what our actual deliverable drawings will look like. So here we're back in our model, or our master file, I guess. I'm going to go into our sheet space, and we have a title block. I've already set up a title block in this file. And so what I'm going to do is straight from our BIM navigator on the left side of the screen, I can right click on the second floor plan and press place in sheet. And you can see based on this preview, it's actually going to be placed to scale. So it's significantly larger than what we want. And if I just right click, I can select the scale that I want so that it's very easy to understand and it will actually fit on my sheet. So I'll start off with 1 to 50 and see if that works. That does not work. 1 to 100. So what you'll see in a moment here is why that's important to select your scale, because that scale is automatically filled into my annotation. So now I don't have to manually label, okay, this is the scale of this model. It's automatic. So that reduces some of those inconsistencies that we can deal with. And when it comes to architectural drawing sets, inconsistencies can lead to legal action, which we obviously all want to avoid. So this kind of removes some of that, human error possibilities. So you can see here, we have, again, our kind of section indicators that still are aligned with our geometry and our drawings. Our labels are here, and so on. So does anyone have any questions on what I kind of did there in terms of organizing the 2D onto our sheets? Yep.
I don't know if they're lights or something.
Yeah, they're lights. Yes. So, thank you for reminding me. Remember how we looked at the filters at the beginning? Where we were able to actually filter and isolate the entities that we want to work with or the object types. So, what we can do, well, there's two ways to kind of. So, there's a few ways we can get rid of them. The quick kind of cover up way is take our viewport and just drag it up and say now it's gone. We haven't actually gotten rid of them. We've just decided not to show them. So that's the quickest way to do it. Probably the easiest. What we can actually do, and I did want to show this, is we can, if I go back to our filters, we can save a filter. So I'll say, let me do this. I'll do filters. I'll go back to that kind of example I showed before. Actually, I'll do doors. So I'll do category is doors. So this is going to only show the doors in this model. So if I were to say, what we can do is save this filter, and I'll just say, oh, how'd we get up there? Well, I'll say doors. Very descriptive. What I want to do, when I go to my drawings here, I've turned off that filter. But what I can do is I can assign filters to individual plans and sections. If I want to show a plan that's only the doors, I can without actually filtering the entire model, because everything kind of waterfalls. I don't know if I'm explaining this the best, but I'll show you in a moment. So if I click the second floor plan and I assign our door filter to it, only this 2D floor plan will show only the doors. Everything else will still show all of the objects that I want to show, but if I can assign them individually. So if let me think. I think I have to refresh the section. I'll go to second floor. When I pull it back up, it will be just a bunch of doors. But the section of this building will still show everything. It'll show the walls and everything that we've cut through. See? So that really gives you kind of flexibility when it comes to, okay, I want this floor plan, or I want this plan view to show only certain entities, but I want this plan view to show everything in the building. So that you can really organize your sheet set in a way that you want it to be. Yes, that's a good point. Let me go back and show that. I might have to refresh it. Okay, no. Yeah, so now in our actual sheet that we would print to PDF or whatever, it shows that. But I'm going to remove that filter because that doesn't really give us much good information. I'll assign all entities back to it. So that's one. I say all that to bring it back. If you wanted to say remove the lamps, you could just say filter them out of the plan, and then it will filter them all out of the plan itself. That's probably the longer way to do it. I think just moving the viewport like I did, definitely faster. You can hide individual entities. That's just base DraftSight, where it's just, I can select an object and hide it. You can do that. Yeah. The BIM objects are still, they're converted to kind of DWG objects, so you can, for the most part, just treat them as DWG objects. You can select them, hide them, whatever you want. It kind of, yep.
Scale, I said, keep in mind on the techniques, right? The cell size. When you scale it, nice to, focus on just the, obviously when you get that print of the PDF, read the print,
Mhm.
the bottom follow. Will be there as well. Or it's just you'll have the full building. Is it, will the block be centralized to the same part that you're creating on this plan? Right? No,
The
technical enough.
BOM, you mean? Like, are you saying if you're, yeah. Yep.
Follow the door. I'm doing it. I have to follow it.
Yeah. So when you can create door schedules in this example here. So what I could do, I could show you if you'd like. You create the filter to say, I want my second floor doors. And once you have that assigned, you can create a table automatically and essentially lay out your doors with whatever information you want in a table and then throw it in your drawing. And so then you'll have an automatically generated door schedule.
Because you can go to doors, you can go to windows.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
You know, abstract, you can
Yeah,
do
you can do doors and windows. You can get crazy. Yeah, yeah,
It goes on and on.
yeah,
And that's really one of them, because when they work differently, different contractors,
yeah,
they will want, so all information will follow.
yeah. And the information that you can show in a schedule, it's all tied to, it's consistent with, the model, because you can't actually change some of the most of the properties you can't change. So there's no discrepancies between the modeler and what we're showing in our drawings. So we kind of remove a lot of the possibility for human error, because we're saying, no, you cannot override the data. The data is the data, the information is the information. If you want to change it, talk to the modeler.
Then it becomes really.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at the end here, which I can show very quickly, I know we're, we got just under 10 minutes. Yeah, I'll turn it into a quick PDF. Let me refresh this. I'll pull this this section label back into the actual bounds of the sheet too. There we go. Oh, we're cutting it close. We're cutting it close. So does anyone, while I'm doing this, does anyone have any more questions or any things that they might want to see, curious that whether or not we can do it? Any scenarios that you're curious if we can handle? Oh, I think we're as good as we're going to get there. Okay. So let me see how we look. We can do a quick preview of our PDF. Not bad, not too shabby. So I know this is the most bare bones sheet set that you'll ever see, but I'll do, we have actually at the top here, the publish to PDF. So, when you're working in this, you'll probably have dozens of sheets as a final deliverable. So with here, you can just, with one click, if you've set up your templates correctly with your print settings in there, you're able to just quickly convert them all into one multi-page PDF. You can see you get that little indicator in the bottom right where we're running in the background there. And yeah, that's kind of how it's that easy just to get your final PDF deliverables, or, you can still follow the traditional DWG based print process if you're going to print to a physical, sheet, if you have the right plotter and everything. But yeah, it's the whole BIM module as a whole, to wrap it up, because we're coming up. It's designed to not necessarily change your 2D workflow. It still feels like you're working in DraftSight. It's not fundamentally different. It's just we've really greatly enhanced it with the ability to add these really complex 3D models as an input into them. And it saves a ton of time. If you're working with architects who are modeling these 3D models, they don't have to extract the floor plans, because that requires time and effort for them. They can give you it all at once, and it's up to you to kind of say, okay, you can kind of you can show what you want to show very quickly. You're saving a lot of time while still feeling like you really haven't changed your work that much. So it's a real time saver. And obviously I did not set something up correctly, because this is a blank sheet. I have a feeling we've got some def point layer going on.
DraftSight Premium?
So this is Enterprise Plus Premium. The BIM module is available in Premium, Enterprise Plus, and 3D Experience Premium. It's not available in Pro, Enterprise, Mechanical. Yeah. So does anyone have, I know, honestly, the BIM module as a whole, it's kind of tough to get through in only 45 minutes if you really want to get into the details of every single thing you can do, because it's very in-depth and it can be really powerful when you customize it. So, I don't want to hold anyone up. We are up on time. So if anyone has any last questions, feel free to ask them now. Or if you want to just kind of chat after, we can definitely get more in-depth after the fact too. But, to formally wrap it up on time, I'd like to say thank you, everyone, for, taking the time to sit and listen and talk with me. And if you're interested, I know other things going on. You can get certified with DraftSight, the new professional hands-on certification while you're here for free. We have the associate certification. Talk to the SolidWorks certification team. And yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show.